In today's video, we're going to be doing a macaronage experiment. In one batch, we're going to macaronage with the spatula. In the second batch, we're going to macaronage with the mixer. Now, using the mixer was made famous by the YouTube channel Sugar Bean. And since Sugar Bean has this perfected, I wanted to use their recipe. I've made a slight adaptation so that the yield is 1 tray of shells. The ratios are exactly the same. I'll put the recipe that I used for both batches in the description below. So without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to differentiate the batches by different food coloring. Pink will be spatula, green will be mixer. We're also using the Swiss method for the meringue. You put your egg whites and sugar over barely simmering water, and you want to stir until the sugar is completely melted. You can lift up the egg whites and feel for any grains. Once you no longer feel any grains, move to the mixer. I start the mixer on a low speed for about 30 seconds, and then I'll slowly increase the speed up to about a 7 or an 8. I'm going to whip until soft peaks form, and then I'm going to add the food color. You want to continue beating the meringue until stiff peaks are formed. Stiff peaks are when the meringue is pointing straight out and not bending over at all. Let's take a look. See how pointy that is? That is stiff peaks. Remember, the pink means macaronage with the spatula. So I'm adding the meringue to the dry ingredients and incorporating. Once we have the meringue and the dry ingredients well mixed together, we start the macaronage stage. I have not edited anything out of the macaronage stage. I've only sped up so you can see the entire process. We want to macaronage until we get to a ribbon-like stage. You can test this ribbon-like stage several ways. You can lift up your spatula and watch how the batter rolls off of the spatula. You can do a figure 8 test and see if you can form a figure 8 without the batter breaking as it comes off the spatula. You also want to pay attention to how the batter falls back into itself in the bowl. After you do your figure 8, look and see how the edges kind of dissolve back into the batter. When you've reached this stage, you can stop the macaronage and transfer to the piping bag. One observation I'd like to point out is it took me 8 minutes and 41 seconds to macaronage with the spatula. Now cover your work surface with a towel. I'm using a 1.5 inch template. If you would like this template, there's a link in the description below. But hold your piping bag directly over the baking tray and squeeze with even pressure. Remove the template and bang your tray to remove any air bubbles. You can use a scribe or a toothpick to pop any remaining air bubbles underneath the surface. After getting rid of the air bubbles, I'm going to set this tray aside and let it rest while we do the macaronage with the mixer test. Just with the previous batch, we're using the Swiss method of meringue. I've already melted the sugar and I'm transferring to the mixer. Again, I start the mixer on a low speed and slowly increase the speed up to a 7 or an 8. Once the meringue gets that soft glossy look, I'm going to add the food coloring. This time I'm adding green to differentiate our mixer batch. I'm going to continue mixing again until we reach stiff peaks. Remember, stiff peaks are when the meringue is pointing straight out and the ends do not bend over. Let's take a look. Straight points, we're good to go. Now we're going to add the dry ingredients to the meringue. I'm going to add about half of the bowl at one time to incorporate. I'm using the low speed on the mixer. I'm lifting the bowl up to try to get the dry ingredients that have settled at the bottom of the bowl. Once the dry ingredients look incorporated, I'm going to add the remaining dry ingredients. I'm using a spatula to push down the sides and as well as pushing what's stuck in the whisk back down into the bowl. Again, I'm going to keep the speed on low. I'm going to use the spatula to help make sure the dry ingredients that are stuck on the side of the bowl get pushed down and incorporated into the batter. Now I'm going to increase the speed slightly and keep pushing the batter back down into the bowl. My dry ingredients aren't 100% incorporated just yet. Now that the batter is well mixed together, I'm going to put the speed around a 2 or a 3. I just want to be really careful not to overmix the batter. Again, I have not deleted anything out of this process. I've only sped it up. Now let's check the ribbon-like stage. It still looks thick, so let's keep going. Okay, let's check again. It's starting to ribbon more, but it still seems to be holding its shape. Let's go a little longer. Now the batter looks to be thinner. I'm going to use the spatula and try to do a figure 8 test and see how it rolls off the spatula. It looks like I can get a figure 8 off of the spatula. I'm going to stop the macaronage stage here and transfer the batter to a piping bag. This time, the macaronage stage took a total of 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Just like before, I'm going to pipe the shells using the 1.5 inch template and remove the air bubbles by banging and using a scribe. So while we were working on this batch, the pink shells have been drying. They now have a skin that has formed, and I can rub my finger over top of the shells and no batter comes off. I can feel a thick, dull skin. So when the pink batch came out of the oven, I had an unexpected result. I'll show you that in just a moment. But that actually caused me to have to make a tweak. And I had a little bit of batter left over from both batches, so I wanted to do a third experiment. And I'll explain that once I show you the results of the first two and why I made that third experiment. So stay tuned to see the results. The pink batch is out of the oven and right away I can tell something went wrong. The tops are wrinkly and splotchy. I haven't had a batch do this in a long time. One thing that was different today than when I normally bake macarons is they rested for 30 minutes. I live in a dry environment and normally my shells will dry in about 15 to 20 minutes. I noticed when testing my shells after resting, the skin felt thicker than normal. So this prompted me to rest the green shells for only 20 minutes. The green batch is out of the oven and right away they look so much better. So my thought about my pink shells resting too long looks to have been right because the green shells are smoother and not splotchy. Because of this result, that prompted the third test, and that is taking the remaining batter. I baked at a lower temperature for a longer amount of time. This time the shells rested for 25 minutes. I wanted to see if a shorter resting time would truly make a difference with the pink shells compared to the green shells. And I also wanted to test baking at a lower temperature just to see if that made a difference as well. So the third batch was baked at 275 degrees for 20 minutes. Now that all the shells have cooled, let's take a look at our macaronage experiment and see the inside of the shells. First up is the pink batch that we originally baked. This has the wrinkly tops and looks a little splotchy. These are the shells that rested for 30 minutes. Now let's cut the shell open and see the inside. As you can see, the shell is actually full, even though the top is splotchy and wrinkly. And just a reminder, the pink shells were macaronaged with the spatula. Now let's check the green shells. Ooh, that top is crunchy. Based on how it cut, I'm not surprised to see hollow shells. I think we definitely overmixed the batter using the mixer in the macaronage stage. Now let's take a look at that third tray. The pink shells do not seem to be splotchy and wrinkly like the first batch. The inside of the green is still hollow. I believe that's overmixing in the macaronage stage. The pink is full. That was where we macaronaged with the spatula. To recap the experiment, the pink batch, which was the spatula, the macaronage took 8 minutes and 41 seconds, rested for 30 minutes, baked at 300 degrees for 15 minutes. The green batch, which was using the mixer for macaronage, took 4 minutes and 10 seconds, rested for 20 minutes, baked at 300 degrees for 15 minutes. and the leftover batter rested for 25 minutes, baked at 275 degrees for 20 minutes. In conclusion, the spatula definitely won over the mixer today. I would definitely like to revisit this experiment and do it again in the future. If you'd like to see that video, please let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching today's video. If you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and while you're here, make sure to watch this other macaron video. Have a wonderful and blessed day.